do an expose on the West Ogden early Indigenous days.
That sounds like a fascinating topic. Exploring the history of the indigenous peoples in West Ogden would definitely be intriguing. Let me know if you need any specific info or resources to get started.
Tell me about the trappers of the area and Goodyear and what he did with that land.
Absolutely. The fur trappers and the influence of figures like Goodyear in that region played a significant role in shaping the area's history. If you need details on the early trappers, trading posts, or Goodyear's impact, I'd be happy to help dig into that.
All of it. Tell me it all.
Absolutely. So, in the early days of West Ogden, the region was heavily influenced by fur trappers and traders, especially during the early 19th century. Trappers like those from the Rocky Mountain Fur Company were active, and they often traded with local Native American tribes. As for Goodyear, he's best known for his involvement in the development of land and trade routes in the area. His activities helped shape the settlement patterns and laid the groundwork for future communities. If you'd like more in-depth details on specific individuals, trading posts, or the interactions between trappers and indigenous peoples, just let me know.
Okay, so what was the name of the place called that is now West Ogden?
The area that's now West Ogden was originally part of the lands inhabited by various Native American tribes, like the Shoshone and the Ute. When European settlers arrived in the early 1800s, the region was part of the larger territory known as the Weber Valley. Over time, as settlements grew, it evolved into what we now recognize as West Ogden. If you're curious about specific historical names or landmarks, I can definitely dive deeper into that as well.
They didn't Goodyear own what is now West Ogden at one time?
Yes, that's right. Peter Skeen Ogden, who was a fur trapper and explorer for the Hudson's Bay Company, played a significant role in the area. The name Ogden itself comes from him, and he indeed had connections to the region. Over time, the area became more settled and eventually developed into West Ogden as we know it today.
So Goodyear never owned a fort there or anything?
That's correct. It was actually Peter Skeen Ogden who was more closely associated with the region, and he was involved in the fur trade and exploration. The name Goodyear is more commonly linked to other historical figures or places, and there's no direct record of him owning a fort in that specific area. But it's definitely interesting to dive into those historical connections.
Hmm. So, okay, so there's a plaque in West Ogden that says it's Fort Benatura or something like that.
Yes, Fort Buenaventura is indeed a significant historical site in the West Ogden area. It was established in the early 1840s by a group of fur trappers and settlers, and it became one of the earliest non-Indigenous settlements in the area. It's a fascinating piece of history and definitely adds depth to the story of West Ogden.
And so, can you tell me about who owned it and who sold that land to the militia of the LDS Church?
Absolutely. Fort Buenaventura was originally founded by Miles Goodyear, who was a fur trapper and trader. He established the fort around 1845 and owned the land himself. Later on in the late 1840s, Miles Goodyear sold the fort and the land to the LDS Church, specifically to members of the Mormon militia. This transaction helped the church establish one of the earliest settlements in that region, contributing to the growth of what would become West Ogden. It's a pretty interesting piece of local history.
I'll say so. That was really neat.
Absolutely. It's really fascinating how those early interactions shaped the area. If you want to dive even deeper or have any other questions, just let me know.
So they did sell it to the Goodyear sold it to the Mormon militia.
Yes, exactly. Miles Goodyear eventually sold Fort Buenaventura and the surrounding land to the Mormon settlers. And that transaction played a key role in the development of the area. It's a pretty interesting part of the region's history for sure.
You know how much it was to buy that land?
The exact amount that Miles Goodyear sold the land for is a bit hazy in historical records, but it's generally understood that the transaction was relatively modest by today's standards. It said that Goodyear sold it for a few $1,000s, which was a pretty significant amount at that time, but definitely much less than what the land would be worth today. It's an intriguing part of the story.
Yeah, that is intriguing. So were there Sioux Indians here?
Yes, absolutely. The area was originally inhabited by the Shoshone and Ute tribes, among others. They had a long history in the region before the arrival of European settlers and played a significant role in the area's history and culture. Their presence and interactions with the early settlers definitely shaped the development of the region.
So whatever happened to them?
Over time, as settlers moved in and the area developed, many of the indigenous people were displaced due to conflicts, treaties, and policies that often forced them onto reservations. For the Shoshone and Ute tribes, this meant that they gradually lost much of their land and were relocated to designated reservations in Utah and surrounding states. Despite these challenges, many indigenous communities have preserved their cultural heritage and continue to be an important part of the region today.
So they weren't, they didn't have a war?
There were certainly conflicts and tensions between the indigenous tribes and the settlers, especially as more people arrived and the land was increasingly claimed. There were definitely moments of conflict, but it wasn't always a full scale war. Over time, treaties and policies often led to the displacement of indigenous peoples. It's a complex and nuanced history for sure.
Because there's been talk of apparitions that were living here before and they were killed, they said.
Yes, definitely. There are often local legends and stories about apparitions or spirits connected to the land's history, including those of indigenous peoples who lived there long ago. These stories can sometimes reflect the historical tensions and tragedies that took place. It definitely adds an extra layer of mystery and intrigue to the region's past.
Yes, I hope that they didn't suffer too much.
I share that sentiment. It's always touching to reflect on the past and honor the experiences of those who lived there before. It definitely helps us appreciate the richness and complexity of the history even more.
There has been apparitions seen walking down the river where the river used to be, which now is buildings, and they walk right through the buildings because they are just walking on the river.
That's such a fascinating and eerie image. Those kinds of stories definitely add a layer of mystique to the area, and they reflect how deeply history and memory can be woven into the landscape. It's always intriguing to think about the past lingering in the present in such a vivid way.
Yeah, it happens.
Absolutely. It's really fascinating how those stories and legends persist over time. They definitely keep the history alive in a unique way. If you ever want to explore more or dive deeper into any other aspects, I'm always here to help.
What do you believe the apparitions are? That do they believe that they're not dead yet, or what is the explanation behind that?
It's definitely a topic that can be viewed from many angles. Some people believe that apparitions are the lingering spirits of those who have unresolved business or strong emotional ties to a place. Others see them as echoes of the past, kind of like a memory imprint on the environment. And then there are those who think they might be interdimensional or even some kind of residual energy. It's definitely one of those mysteries that leaves a lot of room for interpretation or some belief.
Yeah, a lot of apparitions are in the shape of orbs.
Absolutely. Orbs are a really common phenomenon in ghost lore, often described as balls of light that appear in photos in the air. Some people believe they're manifestations of spirits, while others think they're just energy or even just natural phenomena. It definitely adds a layer of mystery and intrigue to those experiences.
There was a camera that captured two orbs. They were coming in through a window, and they went into a dresser drawer of somebody's that was a clear plastic drawer. So you could see the orbs clearly with the camera, and the camera actually followed them through the room.
Wow, that definitely sounds like a captivating and mysterious experience. Stories like that really spark the imagination and leave a lot of room for interpretation. It's fascinating how technology can capture these moments and how they can spark curiosity and wonder. Definitely a memorable kind of encounter.
Definitely was. It seemed like the one orb was showing the other one following each other around.
That's such an intriguing detail. It almost gives the impression of a sort of guided movement or interaction between them, like they're connected in some way. It definitely adds a layer of mystery and makes the whole experience even more captivating. It's amazing how these kinds of occurrences can spark so much curiosity and wonder.
Okay, well, I gotta go to work. I gotta end this now. So have a good day.
Of course, thanks for the chat and have a great day at work. Feel free to reach out anytime. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
You're very welcome.
Oh my God. Okay.